So, Ben, absolute honor to have you on. Welcome to the Self-Made Podcast. For anyone who doesn't know about you, tell us a little bit about who Ben Mudge is.
That's a question. Firstly, thank you very much, Simon. So I am Ben Mudge. I'm from Northern Ireland. I am 32 this year, which is crazy to think.
Oh man, I'm the same as you. I'm about like 2-3 months younger than you. It's weird thinking hitting that big number.
Yeah, we're 30s, like now getting into them. So I've been in the fitness industry for 10 years. This will be my 11th year I'm going into now. My path to being in the fitness industry was a bit of a unique one. I studied film studies for 4 years with the intent of becoming involved in the film industry. You know, a director was kind of that was my goal. I started working in the industry after getting a couple of jobs. I got a job on Game of Thrones, which was the first season of that. So that's, small project. Again, it was the first season, so there's no expectations. No one knew anyone. No one knew anything about it. So at the time, it wasn't a big deal. It was kind of like, oh, I got to meet Sean Bean. That was my biggest thing. I got to meet Boromir.
It's one of the best voices. If it wasn't for Morgan Freeman and Alan Rickman, it'd be the best voice in cinema.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
I got to speak to him. Like, I have a conversation with him. I was just like, "You're Boromir." Like, I know you're playing stuck here, but you're Boromir. Like that's awesome. So yeah, basically, I did a good bit of work on the film industry. And then I quickly realized that, unfortunately, with my my health, I've got cystic fibrosis. I couldn't continue to be in that industry without having a significant effect on my health. I was already experiencing kind of negative side effects from the workload, from the stress, from the early mornings, the lack of food, the lack of exercise. And, it's a scary decision when you're 2021, suddenly changing completely your path in life. And that was terrifying. And it was actually a conversation with one of the extras, who's a Dothraki warrior. And I was like, what do you do that allows you to be like, what is your job? Like, how are you here dressed up as a warrior? Like, and he's like, oh, I'm a personal trainer. And he said, do you go to the gym? Basically, long story short, he kind of was like, yeah, you should maybe consider looking into personal training. Didn't know what it was. I was like, all right, cool. Did that. Best decision I ever made, without a doubt, for not only myself, but, hopefully all the clients I've worked with and all the people I've hopefully helped as well. It's just, yeah, it was a fantastic decision. Fast forward 10 years, I've been lucky to be on the cover of, just about see it in the top corner. I know this is a podcast and people can't see it, but in the top corner of my video, you can kind of see where I was on the cover of Men's Fitness. That was a huge thing for me. Yeah, I've been very, very lucky with the opportunities that I've had. And again, a lot of that comes down to just, me trying to I'm just prioritizing my own health, and people are taking, cues from that, and that's fantastic. And that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I just want to help people, have the best life they possibly can, because health and fitness has given me more than I could ever truly put into words when it comes to opportunities in life, experiences in life. The way I've always said this is, fitness should be enriching your life, not dominating it. And that is exactly what it's done for me. And if I can help other people even get 1% of what it's given to me, I'm a happy man. So that's me in a nutshell.
I think, I remember, I think the first time I actually met you was at Body Power, and it must have been early on in your career, because it must have been like 9 years ago, because it was prior to when I moved to London and joined UP. So I was in Virgin Active on a Icon nutrition stand, and I met you at Body Power. And I'm very much a firm believer. I tend to support people that are good people. And one of the things that stood out, obviously, you at Body Power on a stand, phenomenal shape, but one of the nicest guys at the expo that's took time to chat to everybody. And then going into your backstory and sort of into your history with cystic fibrosis and the battles that you faced, it became even more inspiring. And you mentioned sort of like fitness enriching your health. I think that sometimes I think it's a quite inspiring story for anyone that has cystic fibrosis, but even people that don't, in the sense that the people that get so wrapped up in the minutiae and the day-to-day and the obsession that is when it comes to their physique, sometimes it's good hearing a story of someone that, by all means, a lot of people with the struggles that you face don't get anywhere near where you have, to just give a bit of perspective in terms of actually what is this all about.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, I started doing this. Again, I'm not going to lie and be like, oh, I started this to get healthy and to feel better. Like, it was honestly because I knew that girls like muscles.
Yeah, me too.
That was literally it. Like that's how, and I think, a lot of people are, could probably share the same thing. We just wanted to do it because we knew it was attractive to whatever sex we were trying to impress. And obviously it's evolved massively from then. Like someone actually asked me the other day, like, who was your like first body goal, like inspiration? It was flipping Ja Rule. Ja Rule was my first. He came out with a video, and he had clearly been training in between his last video and his recent one. It was I just remember seeing him being like, I want to look like that. That is a nice look. Like, and I watched it again actually like last week. Someone asked me it, and I was like, I think I've surpassed Ja Rule. I think I've surpassed him by now. But yeah, again, it always comes back to what gets you started isn't really necessarily what continues to go. As you grow as a human, as a person, your motivation and whatever keeps you going, it changes as well. But now, yeah, it's just been a case. It's now just part of me. Like it's a habit. It even goes beyond habit. It's part of me, but it's not the whole part of me. Like that's the thing that you find a lot about fitness people or whatever you want to call them. It seems like their entire lives revolve exclusively around being jacked, being shredded, going to the gym. And that's just not the case with me. Like I do what I do so I can do what I want. That's essentially it in a nutshell. Like I do all the things I need to necessarily do to keep myself healthy, to keep myself, from a physical perspective and a mental health perspective. And then just simply like I do all the stuff that are kind of like checkbox things that you're like, okay, I need to do this. This isn't I want to do this, is I need to do this. And sometimes it is what I want to do, but most of the time it's what I need to do. And in life, like there's an epiphany I had the other day, really, when I was talking to one of my clients. And that's kind of what life is. It's this kind of decision path that is split two ways. And it's what you need to do and then what you want to do. And unfortunately, most people pick the latter. They pick what they want to do. And if that is not going to the gym, that's what they're not going to do. If that's not eating the foods they need to eat, that's what they're not going to do. And again, it literally comes down to that. It's like what you need to do, what your body needs, what your mind needs, what you need as a person versus what you want to do. And it's about that battle. And again, you're not going to win that battle every time. You're going to pick what you want to do, probably more often than you should, but realistically, it should be coming from what you need to do. And that filters all the way down to nearly every decision in life.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things as well. It's what you want to do, what you need to do to a degree, but also like often what you want to do in the moment is often very short-term gratification type things. And we're in a world where Netflix, Deliveroo, we've got these short-term gratification things, but very rarely is the big things in life you can remember. Do you know what I really liked in 2009, that curry I had on Deliveroo? But it's the things we want to do down the line. It's the things we want to do that are bigger picture, the life goals that we want to achieve that require always, especially if it's hard work, a bit of need to do first.
Yeah, 100%. Like again, anything worth having was probably hard earned.
Yeah.
I mean, like when something falls in your lap, you're like, oh, that was cool. But when you've worked and worked and worked, the gratification you get is just, it's consistent. It's so long and it's so long lasting, and it's not that instant hit. It's that, oh, this is a sustained hit. Like it's the equivalent of like a sprint versus a marathon. Like that's the difference. Unfortunately, people give up before they get to the point where they start to see the benefits of their hard work. And that's where kind of we come in as coaches. It's like, okay, look, and that's something I've always had at the forefront of my mind. Like you need to be consistent with this stuff. There's no quick fixes. And if they are going to be as quick to get, and they're going to be just as fast to lose.
Yeah.
So it's not sexy. It's not marketable. It's very hard to get across the fact that most of our sessions that we do are pretty bread and butter, boring, just progressive overload, the same movements over and over again. But it's it's what the world we live in, where people just want.
So one old colleague of mine said that luck is hard work meets opportunity, and I'm sure that's obviously been said before, but I think it was him that drilled it into me. And I think it's so true. It's like people often say like you're lucky or it's genetics, and I'm like, yeah, but genetics might give you a better bone structure. But if someone's lean and someone's muscular, they've got to have done something with those genetics. And everybody has that ability to sort of get themselves in great shape relative to where they are. It's just that sort of most people don't do it. And I suppose it's looking at someone who, like say, has come from having maybe a harder ride of things than some other people and has managed to do it. It takes most of our job, I think, is taking away excuses. from people.
Yep.
And like you said that fitness isn't the whole of your life. That probably makes you a better coach. Because I know I've had clients say to me, he goes, the moment I started listening to you is when you told me you had a pizza. I'm like, well, why wouldn't I? But you're right. Some people in this industry are just, they don't understand outside of the bodybuilding stage.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
That's the thing, like, this whole idea of, I've always kept it in my mind that, look, self-comparison, comparing to other people is a fruitless exercise, because that whole thing about everyone has 24 hours in a day, that Molly May, I don't even know who that is, by the way. I had to ask who that was.
I think it's a Love Island person. Am I right? Yeah, I don't know.
I think so. I think that was the answer I was given. I kind of threw it out there, not really caring what the answer was.
Yeah.
But this whole idea of like everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. Yeah, they do. But how they are spent is wildly different. I don't have kids. My job is in the health and fitness industry. So the amount of time that I have free to do the things that I need to do, or to basically put the things that are priorities into action, are wildly different to someone else. So again, it's about, for me, it's about finding out what people are capable of doing and just getting into work to that level. Like, I never, ever say, oh, if I can do this, you can do this, because that's just nonsense. Like, that is just me being deluded and thinking like, oh, you've got all the free time that I have. You can spend your time in the way that I spend my time. And it's nonsense. So that's kind of why it's a message I try to avoid, in terms of like, I never want to be preachy. I'm not better than anybody. I may be good at training, but that's because I prioritized it. Someone else could be way better banking than me or investing than me, and that doesn't make anyone better than anyone else. It just makes you've specified in something that is a high priority of yours. Someone could be a fantastic dad or mum or whatever, but not so great in the gym. That doesn't make them a better person. It's the thing that I find frustrating about the fitness industry is a lot of coaches are talking to the people they're talking to, but from their soapbox. It's like, I'm doing this and you should do this and you should do, and it sounds so preachy. It's just like, you're kind of losing them. I understand what they're trying to do. At the same time, they're like, you're disconnected with who you're actually trying to speak to. And it's that sense of like, as soon as a client looks to you as, oh, you're better than me, I think you've lost the connection with your client. We are not better than anyone because of the body fat we have or the muscle tissue we have or anything like that. There's no better people in the world than others. Well, arguably some extreme examples on one end, but yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, it's this, I'm not better than anyone. I've prioritized, I have certain priorities. You have different priorities. The new person listening to this has different priorities, but no one should feel worse about themselves because of someone else's different priorities.
And those priorities will shift as well as you go through life, right? Like one of the things I was going to ask you, and you brought up earlier on about how training isn't all you are, and mentioned being 31. We're both at that stage now where Chris Williamson would call it the menopause, right? If you listen to any of his stuff. Yep. Do you feel like your outlook to training, maybe your training methodologies, has changed as you hit 30? Because this is the time where every guy starts becoming into BJJ or CrossFit, and I'm fighting it as long as possible. But has your outlook to training changed as you sort of gotten into your 30s?
So no, but yes at the same time. So I think you kind of go through these, you can almost like block it out almost for guys. It's like, first of all, it's like, how much can I lift? And then it's like, how strong can I get? And then it's a case of like, okay, how well can I lift? That's kind of the typical path.
Yeah, I'm in the third.
I almost skipped the how strong can I. In fact, I did. I skipped the how strong can I get, and also how much can I lift, like in terms of like volume and how long I can spend in the gym. I almost skipped those and got straight to how well can I execute this movement? How efficient can I make my training? Do I need all these extra sets and drop sets and all these complicated movements that, it's going to be 0.0001% of an improvement? But, am I worrying about those things too much? And I thankfully actually had this conversation in the gym yesterday with a guy. I got out of that very, very quickly. I focused all my efforts on how efficiently and how effectively can I move this weight to elicit the results I want. So my form has always been, I was called, like, before the whole Thor thing, the guys in my gym used to call me Iron Man because the way I moved was like so robotic. Like, I moved exactly how I wanted to move the weight never dictated how I moved within certain parameters. But it's because I know that if you lift correctly and you lift well, not only are you going to be putting the stress where it needs to be put in terms of like from a muscular perspective, but also then massively reduces your chance of being injured. And for me, injury is one of those things that I have to avoid at all costs, because if I get injured and I can't train, the likelihood is that my health is just going to go downwards. Just because that's just CF, that's just, so that's always been in my mind. So I've always been like, this is longevity. I don't care what I can do now. I care about if I can do what I'm doing now, 20, 30, 40, 50 years time. And I was so grateful the fact that I got into that mindset so early. Again, I would love to be able to tell you this is how I did it, but I think it's probably just a multitude of different things about seeing people who were super strong for a moment in time and then not seeing them in the gym ever again.
Yeah.
And then, or seeing them next time you saw them and they had lost like 20 kilos of muscle and you're like, oh, that feels like you've actually regressed quite a bit. Like, I don't want to peak early. I want to just have this slow, gradual incline, even if it's only 1% every year of progress. I'd rather take that than a 25% jump. So even if you look at my physique as just a kind of measurement stone of that, like, it's not changed. There's no period in time where I just went, boom. It's just slowly been on that incline because, again, I've taken care of the things that I see as important. And then in terms of like a performance perspective, this all comes from, like, I never got playing any sports in school. I was always too small. But the only thing I was good at was sprinting. That was the only thing that I got picked, because you didn't need to be a certain size. You just, if you're fast, you're fast. So I got to do that. And the sense of like pride and the sense of like just confidence in myself that gave me, that's something I've never wanted to let go. So I've always tried to keep the athleticism in my training, so that, I may not be the best bodybuilder, I may not be the best powerlifter or whatever it is, but if you drop me into a physical situation that requires me to perform a task physically, I'm confident that I would do okay at it. Not great, not amazing, just good or okay. And that's the most important thing for me. Like I said, I want my fitness to be able to allow me to, and this is where the idea of the Be More University came in, is like, I just want to be able to be more. I want to be more myself and allow my fitness to allow me to just enjoy my life more. So yeah, that's kind of my methodology or my approach to training. And yeah, I'm just glad I kind of almost skipped over those periods of, I'm going to lift as much as I can and try and get, my squat super heavy. And I did have small periods of that. They were never for that reason. I ran a strength program because I knew it was faster than a hypertrophy program, because I got my dog Ollie and I wanted to be home to play with him.
Yeah.
So, it was a nice little path I had.
I could totally resonate with the athletics thing. I was also too small to play pretty much everything, despite playing, 10, 15 years worth of rugby. And I remember vividly one of the most embarrassing moments as a kid in school was, I don't know if you ever got it, where if you were good at one thing, your teacher assumed you were good at everything. So I remember winning a 400-meter race. So my next week, my teacher assumed I was going to be good at cricket. And I got me out of the front. I had to be taught how to hold the bat because I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But like you, I was quick. And you talk about like the execution standpoint from the impact of it had on your health. I mean, like, does the execution standpoint also, like, does a certain level of volume cause you issues? Like, are you in a very, very set volume range that you had a lot of junk volume because your form wasn't good, or you do more volume than necessary? Does that have an impact quite heavily on your recovery and your health?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that applies to anyone. Realistically, you want the stress that you occur in life, from both physical and mental. Obviously, whenever you're going to the gym, you're getting stress. It's obviously you stress, so it's the good type of stress. But then you've also got, outside of that, you get the distress. So that's, mental, your environment, relationships, all those things. The most important thing, obviously, is to make sure that your stress is always better, or always in a deficit to your recovery, your ability to recover. Unfortunately, so many people put such an emphasis on the stress side of, let's say, just keep it as simple as training, and then neglect the recovery. So it's the equivalent of like digging a hole and then just filling it back up to, let's say your stress and your recovery match. You're just digging a hole and then filling it back up to exactly where it was. You've got no extra material to develop. So for me, it's always about like, okay, if I know, and I've had these conversations with my clients, if you're going through a stressful period in time. So for instance, if you work in a job where January is always a nightmare, or February is always a nightmare, or whatever it is, you need to be accepting of the fact that you're probably going to have to take a step back from your training. Not a step away, but just maybe reduce the amount of stress that you're applying from your training, so that your recovery is always greater than the stress. Because if it's not the case, you cannot improve. You simply cannot. And unfortunately, again, recovery is not a sexy topic because it's hard. There's so many, like going to train, that is inherently, you know, obviously you've got all the ridiculous levels of detail you can go into in training. But for the most part, that's the simple part of this journey. Training is, you know, once you get into a good spot and if you have a good coach and, you know, you've programming, all that, that's the easy part. It's that the 23 other hours that you're probably spending that realistically are going to be, well, they are going to be what dictate whether you get results or not, but they're not the sexy parts because there's so many plates that you have to spin that it's super overwhelming.
How do you approach that? How do you approach that with your clients? Is, as you say, like, it's recovery is the thing that often falls on deaf ears. So you can tell people to do an extra day of training. You can tell people, you know, to do something like have a refeed or a high day. But try and get them to sleep. Try and get them to do breath work. But how do you approach this with your guys, or even yourself, in terms of managing the recovery?
It's about educating. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you can tell someone something over and over and over again, but if they don't understand the simple concepts of it, then they're not going to listen. Whereas if you can educate them and tell them, look, this is the science. I'm going to explain the science in the most simplistic way possible so that you understand this, so that you can make an informed decision. As I said, it comes back to what they need to do and what they want to do. And it's about being strict with them. So for example, I had a client check-in on Monday there, and he likes to train every day of the week. And I was like, look, dude, you can't look, I totally appreciate you like going to the gym. It's where you go to get away, but you have to realize that you are going to develop a negative behavior or a negative, association with going to the gym eventually. You may be feeling great right now, but if you keep going 7 times a week and you're not seeing anything come from that labor, you're going to start to develop a complex, or whatever it is, and you know the correct terminology of it is, but you're going to start developing negative feelings towards going to the gym because it's not bringing you anything. It'll just feel like a time sink. So it's all about educating them and on how, you know, how to get into that position, how to get mentally into that position where you're like, okay, the way I say it is more isn't better, better is better. And that's it. You know, he said like, okay, look, I'm going to try to not go over the weekend. I was like, look, the best thing you could do is take that time off the weekend, because then you're going to come back on Monday and you're going to be raring to go because you've held back, you know, then you're let loose. So your quality of the session Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are going to be so much higher than if you were going Monday, Tuesday, all the way through to Sunday and then background again. It's just, again, it's a difficult subject and it's different for everyone. Again, you have to find different ways of explaining it to other people. You know, one explanation is not going to work for someone else, but again, like that's the kind of beauty of being a coach who gives a crap. I was going to say another word, gives a crap about their clients.
Swear away if you want to swear. Feel free.
Gives a shit, like, because like ultimately, like, you know, I give a shit about my clients. I care about them sometimes more than they care about themselves. And having that on your side is, you know, I always find that the psychological side of what we do, obviously we're not like qualified in any of that, but just getting them to think in ways that, again, I've experienced. You know, I can always try and, you know, I may not be able to relate to them in the exact same ways, but I know there's something else that I can relate to them in that situation they're in. And that's the part of my job that I absolutely love, you know, being able to get someone to understand why they're doing something, not like how they're going to do it. Why are they doing this? What is the reason why you're doing this? And always reminding them that.
The circumstances, the circumstances may be different, but the actual ingrained habits, the responsibilities, the things like delaying gratification, education, they're all there, and they're sort of the same thing, you know. And I often look at these things and someone like that, it's like, could you if you're pulling something away like training, what could you give them? And it comes back to you saying, going back to be more, you know, and then using that to branding in the sense of like, what can he add to his life now that he's now not taken 2 days off the gym? Could he get a hobby? Could he do something with his family? And you may find that, there might be a bit of reluctance, but eventually this becomes a more well-rounded client, which is more important than, hey, here's my before and after photo for Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, again, this conversations I had with my client today, when you prioritize the physical and it's causing the mental to take, you know, hits. So in other words, if someone going through a stressful period of time and they're still trying to go to the gym, they're still trying to keep to this habit of like, oh, I need to go to the gym, but that's actually taking away from their mental health. That's actually, you know, all they can think about when they're in the gym is, oh, I need to do this when I get out. I need to do this. I need to do this. And it's causing more and more and more stress. You're screwed. As soon as you put the physical first, the mental always, in my opinion, has to come first. because it's the most important thing. Like, as I said, you know the difference between like a good mental health day and a bad mental health day. The analogy or the picture I always paint is you can wake up in the morning, and if you're in a great mood, you look at your body, which is, again, it always comes back to physical. Unfortunately, that's just the way we are. It's the way we're hard coded. You look at your body and be like, you know what? I'm maybe not where I want to be just yet, but look, I can appreciate how far I've come. Now, let's take that exact same physique. So nothing's changed. The only thing that's changed is your mind. So now you're in a bad mindset. You look at that body, and instead of being like, you know what? Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. You're like, why is this not changing? Why is this like this? Why is that like that? Why is that like this? So again, physically, nothing has changed. Nothing. But mentally, whole different ballgame. And that can be such a destructive environment to get stuck in that loop of just constantly. So if we prioritize the mental health first, again, you're usually going to set yourself up for success long term. And that's the most important thing to me. It's always about long term. I don't care what they can do in this week or this day or this month. I care about what they're going to do in 12 months' time, 12 years' time. That's the most important thing to me. And that all comes back to my prioritization as a person, because cystic fibrosis is a degenerative illness. I was told all my life, you'll get to this point and you'll start to go downhill. It's just like every guy as well. Everyone knows, like, what is it, 30-ish, your testosterone starts to drop, or some other age.
Don't do this. We're both 31.
yeah. There's some magical number that, like, oh, your testosterone, your metabolism, it all drops down.
Yeah, it's about 5% after the age of 31 or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, my approach to my health and fitness from a CF perspective is kind of similar to that I was told this is going to happen. You're going to get worse and worse and worse as you get older. So as I said earlier on, I would be more concerned about improving 1%. I want that sense of progress, because that makes me feel mentally so much better of something I really don't have really that much control over. My cystic fibrosis is not something I have limited control over. I have one hand on the wheel, and but if that other hand, the one that CF has, if it wants to yank it down, there's only so much I can do. But it's that sense of progression. It's that sense of I always want to be continuing to improve, because not only does that help me physically, the effects that has on my mental health are beyond what I could ever put into words. And that's what I always come from. I always want to think, right, can I do this in 10 years? Can I do this in 15 years? Can I do this in 20 years? Because that's ultimately what matters. Like, what I do right now is, important, but is it sustainable? If not, I'm not going to start it.
And the mind is so powerful in controlling the body. We've all seen, in both sides of the spectrum, people with a different mindset, the effects of placebo in how much that helps people overcome horrendous things. And on the flip side, we see people that were absolutely fine, feel like they could last another 5-10 years. They get some bad news and they're gone. And all that changed really is the mentality and the mindsets. And then, like, before, I've got a question on that, but before going into that, just so we don't jump over people who may not know your story and background, give us a brief overview of what actually cystic fibrosis is and, and your history with it.
Yep. So cystic fibrosis is a genetic illness, so you can't catch it off me. So don't worry about that. That was one of the problems I had in primary school. My friends asked me, can I catch this off you? I was like, no, I don't think so.
You get more of those questions over the last 2 years, because people have been more worried about everything like that over the last couple of years.
No, thankfully, the people who follow me are generally pretty well educated. Thankfully, I always appreciate that. But no, so basically, cystic fibrosis, keep it very simple. It affects the mucus within your body. So the mucus within your body, and everyone who doesn't have cystic fibrosis, again, with a couple of people excluded, is like water in a jar. So if you imagine putting water in a jar and spinning it around, it moves very, very smoothly and freely. People with cystic fibrosis, it's like swapping that water out for something like PVA glue or wallpaper paste. So it's viscous to a certain degree, but it's not going to flow as smoothly as possible. So again, think of like a car. The oil in a car keeps everything moving smoothly and without causing any issues. Again, just like our bodies, the mucus in our body keeps everything lubricated, everything moving the right way, the digestive tract, in the lungs, everything. So when you replace that, thin mucus that everyone without cystic fibrosis has with this thick, sticky stuff, it makes everything so much harder. Digestion, my pancreas, most people with CF, their pancreases don't work. Not it doesn't work, it's the actual thick, sticky mucus stops certain enzymes like lipase from getting out to help break down fats. So I have to take digestive enzymes. Again, because it's genetic cystic fibrosis, it affects people in A bunch of different ways, but mainly most people have digestion issues, and then the killer really is the lungs. So this thick, sticky mucus is within your lungs. If we get like a chest infection, the bugs that would usually in your chest go down, sit in the lung tissue. You get antibiotics, you finish the course, boom, they're gone. However, with that thick, sticky mucus, it's the perfect environment for that bacteria to just grow. And unfortunately, with that comes the destruction of the lung tissue as well. So that if we get a chest infection, if we don't get it treated correctly, or the antibiotics don't work, or whatever it is, all these external complications, we will essentially lose that bit of our lung. It'll get damaged to the point where it's scarred and it's now no longer useful. So essentially, if you keep getting chest infection after chest infection after chest infection, you're losing more and more and more of your lungs. So eventually, you would have to get a lung transplant. And again, that doesn't cure it. There's no cure for CF at the moment. It just simply resets the clock. And then obviously there's a myriad of complications that come with organ transplants. Not only just the lack of them, but also then your body could just reject it because they're not your lungs. So yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of death in the CF community at depressingly young ages. So yeah, it's not a happy thing. But again, I say fortunately, I don't say luckily, because luckily, luck, as you said earlier, it's that combination of hard work and consistency. But it's I do everything I possibly can to ensure that I'm controlling all the variables I can possibly control to ensure that the chances of me getting sick are as low as they can possibly be. So yeah, it's I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty shitty, but it is what it is. I can't control it. It's like me getting pissed off at the weather. I can't control it, so I just got to do all the things I need to do. If it's raining, you put on a jacket, you get an umbrella, you put sensible shoes on. It's exactly the same thing with my CF. I do all the things I can control, but I ultimately can't get pissed off because, yeah, I do sometimes. But at the end of the day, I can just do what I need to do to weather that condition. So
I read somewhere that you said you realised that something was really wrong around at the age of 18. Is it so like that? You were getting chest infections, you were getting illnesses as a kid, and then your lungs capacity got worse until it got to a point where it was like, this is more than just feeling a bit off.
Yeah, so it was actually, and I was actually able to almost pinpoint exactly what happened. So I've been hospitalized twice in my life with lung infections. Now that is very, very, very little compared to someone else. Someone with cystic fibrosis could be in and out of hospital 8 times a year. I've only ever been in twice. Again, touch wood. But I can almost pinpoint exactly what caused those. And it was the big change in my lifestyle for either a short period of time or a long period of time. The first time was I went to Florida, and I wasn't supposed to be going to Florida. I was supposed to be going somewhere else. And my family were like, oh, we don't have a bed, so sleep on an air mattress. So first of all, I was in a long haul flight, which is not typically the most, bacteria-free environment. Then when I got there, I was sleeping on an airbed. So my sleep quality was terrible. And if you've been to America, you know what the food's like. It is not exactly the most healthy food in the world. Again, healthy food. That's a whole other discussion there. But again, not the most optimal food for optimized health. So those things, basically, I started coughing more. I couldn't breathe as clearly. At that time, I lived with my mom and dad, and we lived in a house that had 1, 2, 3, 4 flights of stairs, 5 maybe. And my bedroom's at the top. So I usually, my entire life, I'd run up those stairs without even thinking about breathing. But I remember so clearly, I got to the top flight to my room, and I was like, oh, that like, why am I so out of breath? Like, that's not something I'm used to being. And then, yeah, sure enough, it was a chest infection that took my lung functions down from 100%, which is 100% is someone my age, weight, and height without cystic fibrosis. That's how they measure it. Mine went from 100% to 66%. So it was the equivalent of like it felt like someone was just holding my lungs closed at the bottom. So whenever I tried to take a breath, it felt like someone just gut punched me. Everything I was doing was more tiring. It sucked. But again, it was because of the lack of sleep, the exposure to a new environment, being on the plane, not getting good nutrition, probably not drinking enough water either. All those things played into it. And then the second time was when I was working within the film industry, and I sat in the car with some guy who's smoking, and he had the window open, but it was all blowing back into my face. And again, at that age, I didn't have the balls to be like, mate, can you stop that? Now I would just be like, yeah, mate, cut that out. Working long hours, not getting sleep, not getting to train, not getting to eat the foods I need to eat. So again, a recipe for disaster, which then blew up in my face, and I ended up getting hospitalized again. Lung functions dropped down to 70, low 70s, maybe high 60s. And at that point I was told, yeah, your lung tissues it's a good chance that it's damaged permanently. But in my head, I was like, I know, and this is like these top doctors telling me this, and this is not me saying anything bad about doctors or anything like that, but they were telling me, this is how you feel, this is how you're going to feel for the rest of your life. But I knew they were wrong. I was like, no, I don't feel good right now. I know I can feel better than this. So I know I can improve my life. I may not get them back to 100%, but I know I can get as close as I possibly can. It's going to be pretty up there. But it took me about, after I got out of that, it took me about 7 months, 8 months, year. Yeah, it actually took me about 2 or 3 years to get my lung functions back up to 100%.
So like, I mean, there are many people in your circumstances, or with any bad news that we've had, that would have accepted their circumstances. They would have fallen back, rest on their laurels, let the lung function deteriorate more. What is it you think it's about you that allows you and gives you this drive to sort of overcome the limitations placed upon you? Do you feel this is something that's an upbringing thing, your surroundings, or something that you were like sort of innately born with? Huh?
Stubborn. Stubborn. Committed, stubborn, dedicated, whatever you want to, like. I get it from my mom. Like, my mom and I are very similar. I get a certain degree of that, but it genuinely is just the belief that they were wrong. I would love to say it was some magical conversation, but it's just when someone tells you something and it's wrong, they can tell you all you want. If I said to you, this is right, well, maybe right on your screen, but this is left on my screen, I can be, no, this is right, this is right, this is right, and then in directions. It's not. It doesn't take determination or stubbornness. You're just like, well, I know you're wrong. So that was it. Like, I knew they were wrong. I knew that they did not know how I felt inside. And then it was just a case of going to work, like putting in the work and proving it to not just them. A big part of it was proving it to them, but it's proving to myself that, okay, I know in that moment of time, I didn't feel better. So I'm going to now work as hard as I can to feel better. Whatever result that ends on, I'm happy with, because I've worked hard. But yeah, as I said, it's very, very easy. And I understand, this is not me being like, I'm so good. I'm so dedicated and motivated. Like, I'm not saying that. Like, it's very, very easy to play victim and to get upset and to, self-pity. I understand that. But at the end of the day, like, I just sat and, it was a formative years of my life, that 21-year-old, it's where you make really pretty hard decisions with yourself. And it's when you start really getting to know who you are as a person. And I thought, what is crying in the corner, being upset, being pissed off at life, is it going to bring me anything positive? No. Flat out, no. Am I going to be a fun person to hang out with if all I'm doing is complaining about shit? No. That's literally it. That's what it came down to. I was like, you know what? If self-pity and crying in the corner cured my CF, then geez, I would be the most miserable prick in the world. But it's not. So again, it comes down to that, what you want to do and what you need to do. And I just chose, and I'm very grateful for my past self that I did just choose to be stubborn, committed, dedicated, whatever word you want to put in there.
I think it's an interesting choice of words, using the word stubborn, because I think it's often got a negative connotation. But I think, like, I haven't had anything like anything you've gone through with health in mind, but like, whenever I've had a bad, tough decision or a hard time to go through, I always it's like, what is the alternative? In your situation, your alternative is to get worse or get better. Like, when you boil it down to that basic of a level, I suppose there was no other option for you.
No, yeah, that's it. And that's why I said, like, it's so strange when people, not strange isn't probably the correct term for it, but like, it's odd to me that people are, call me inspiring or motivate, whatever it is, put in whatever word you want there, but this isn't an option for me. I've bricked off option B. There is no option B for me. Like, I firmly bricked that off and well, look, that is not an option for me. I do not want to be a burden to other people. I want to enjoy my life. We get one life. I'm going to do everything I possibly can to enjoy it. And yeah, there may be some parts I don't really enjoy. but that's just being a fucking adult. That's literally it. And I tell you what, actually, so in that second hospital visit where they said, yeah, your lung function may be damaged, this is actually probably one of the kind of moments, actually, now I'm thinking about it. There was a guy who was in a room to my left. So we all had individual rooms because cross infection is a real serious thing in cystic fibrosis. So two people with cystic fibrosis really shouldn't meet, because if one of them has a bug the other one doesn't have, if that one catches the other one, it's bad news. So there's a guy in the room opposite my, so if I was sitting in a certain angle, I could see kind of into his door. And I remember sitting on my bed, and I think I was watching TV or something, and I heard this noise, and I was like, what the heck is that noise? It sounds like a weird machine going off. And I was like, oh, that was weird. It stopped, and then I was like, right, okay. And then maybe a couple of days later, the door was open, so I could see into his room, and he was getting his physio done by this nurse, and the noise happened again. I was like, that's that guy coughing. It's not a noise I'd ever heard being made by a human. It sounded like a cat. You know. I know it sounds really horrible to say, but that Gollum, that noise he made, that guttural. It comes from a person. Like, it was Andy Serkis doing that noise, but that noise, you're like, oh, that's there's something very unsettling about that. And it was him coughing. And I looked over at his room, and he was. I'll never get the mental image of him out of my head. He just looked like an old man. His body was completely crunched over. He is so skinny. Like, his elbow was as thick as part of his arm. The joints were the thickest part of his arm.
Scary.
And I just remember looking at that and going like, that's a potential reality for me. And then the nurse came over, and she was the nurse that was kind of visited everyone. I said, look, I'm sure you're maybe not allowed to tell me this, but is that guy much older than me? And she was like, no. And he was like, I think, roughly guessing, I think I tried to kind of catch a glimpse at his date of birth, but I think it was like 1987. I'm 1990. Yeah. So he's only like 3 years older than me. He was the same age as my brother. And he looked about 50.
That's scary.
And at that age, he was 24. Yeah, 24 at the most. And that is one of those images that I was just like, whew. Okay, no, again, I'm not saying that all the decisions I made, like, I'm not saying he didn't make the same decisions that I did, and that he was late. None of that. I'm not saying that. He just had a shit hand. And I don't know what his ins and outs were, whether he made the right decisions or whether he didn't, or maybe, that's all. It doesn't matter. But that was one of the things I looked at and went, that is a real potential glimpse into one of my futures. And that's just not an option in my head. I was like, nah, I'm not going to make the easy decisions. I'm going to make the hard decisions. I'm going to push myself within reason to make sure that that's a future that hopefully never happens. Now, again, you never know. Life is weird. Life's a bit of a bitch sometimes, but yeah, that was one of the most formulating memories and most impactful memories. And unfortunately, it came from someone else's, pain or discomfort or whatever. But unfortunately, that's what most people need. Like, you find people don't care about their health until it's taken away from them, or they see someone they love, like their parents. So many of my clients come to me because their parents aren't well. I'm like, you're probably going to follow the same path if you don't start making these decisions. So yeah,
I think you can also look at that, and you mentioned people not often caring about their health until it's too late. But you see with the research on people taking life-saving medications that it's still terrible. And I think if there's anything that you can go away, and if you look back at your story and sort of give yourself a pat on the back with, it's like so many people just take this for granted. And you have the foresight at such a young age to be like, no, I'm not going to. And so, like, looking at where you went from there, I mean, because you were a relatively active child with athletics, was it something you sort of knew how to overcome, and you had an idea initially, or did the doctor advise you, or did you actually have to go through this period of research and find out what is it that helps?
It literally was just me thinking, right, if I want to get fit, I probably should like run and stuff. That was literally like, I should probably like run, because runners have pretty good lungs and swimmers have pretty good lungs. And I just thought of all the sports that require your lungs to be taxed.
Yeah.
And I just started doing more of that. Like I remember walking down to my job, and then I remember jogging a little bit of it, then walking, then jogging a little bit more, and then walking the rest. And eventually I was able to, this is when I worked in like a corner shop with my friends. It was great. Eventually I was able to just run the entire way and get there and not even break a sweat. So that's, I mean, but that took a long ass time. But people, again, unfortunately, people don't have that patience or that same drive. Again, would I have the same drive if I didn't have CF? I don't know. Probably not. Most likely not. But I'm not questioning it. I'm going to run with it for as long as I can, because that's what works for me.
What's the biggest things you feel you've implemented with your training and nutrition that has been a game changer for you, in terms of, obviously there's a lot of trial and error in this. Like, what are the things that you think, I did that and that made a massive impact in terms of getting my health? Because I think I saw your video about, and we'll get onto this in a second, about the new medication. You got your lung function up to 97%. Like, what are, before going on to medication side of this and things like that, what are the biggest game changers in terms of your training, nutrition, lifestyle that really helped make an impact?
Sleep. Prioritizing sleep. I have always prioritized sleep. I love my sleep. And again, it's one of those things, it's not sexy to talk about, like, but sleep, honestly, that is one of the cornerstones of my health. Like, if I don't get enough sleep, I can't act. I can't move. I can't concentrate. Like, it's such it's a forgotten or neglected priority when it comes to fitness. I would love to say, oh, it's the training and it's the training, but you spend a third of your life sleeping. So it makes sense to address that part first, because it's such a significant part of what we do. So that, without a doubt, that's number one. Sleep, trying to get good quality sleep, learning what ways I can fall asleep faster. So I love listening to just something in the background, podcasts, videos, whatever it is, something that just allows me to just drift off. That's honestly, I would love to say it was something else, but no, it's sleep.
The interesting thing there is finding out what works for you in that, because I'm very similar in terms of, like, my partner always puts Friends on Netflix to fall asleep to, and if you go to any of the generic sleep advice, and it probably is right for so many, and I give it to so many people as well, is to limit blue light exposure before bed, things like this. And then, these are blue light blocking, and I do that, but at the same time, like, with the exception of last night, where I've got this randomly weird nightmare where I literally was listening to the same lines and that was in that Friends episode, but I put a totally different, darker narrative to that. Very strange. But generally, I think it's finding things that work for you. And I'm very much like you in terms of, like, having something just to shut my brain off. Because if it's quiet, I'll think too much and I'll think of things to do.
It's like whenever there's silence, the voice in your head, like the conversations you have, just gets turned right the way up, and you're like, oh God, I can't turn that shit around. Like, I need to have something else coming in. And again, it may not be the healthiest way of doing things or whatever, but it works. So I'm not going to question it. And again, that's the thing. Everybody's got a different path completely. So you have to find out what works for you. That works for me. So
with your training, I've seen a lot of your workouts that are often generally very full body. Is that based around a potential cardiovascular benefit of training more frequently? Or is it something that, because you said you're not all about the gym, it allows you to get in, do a lot in less time? Or is it a combination of the two?
It's a combination of the two, for sure. Again, it depends on what I'm doing at the time. Like, my training will change as my life does, and that's not something I'm married to. I'm not married to any form of training. I'm always keeping an open mind with any form of training. But for instance, when I'm playing football in like American football, the flag season, full body makes the most sense, because I can't afford to have leg DOMs that last me 3 days and then I have to hit them again because I can't play football. So the idea of it is, instead of doing a session where I have 6 different leg exercises, I take those 6 exercises, and spread them out. So I've got 2 in one day, 2 in the next, 2 in the other. So I'm still getting the same volume. Arguably, probably the intensity and the quality of those sessions those exercises are going to be much, much higher, because, you start with 2 exercises. By the time you get to this 5th and 6th, your performance is dropping at all. In every session, the performance drops as you get towards the end. So by prioritizing them in that way, it also kind of beats God, it's leg day again, because you're like, it is leg day, but it's also back day. It's also chest day. It's also arm day. It's also shoulders, core. So it kind of it's kind of good in that way, but most of the time it's just my training will fluctuate depending on what I've got to do at that time. At the moment, I'm doing push-pull legs because I can. Football season's off. I've actually hurt my knee. I partially tore my ACL, MCL, and meniscus. Yeah, the unhappy triad, it's called. I did that 2 weeks into our season, which was fantastic. But yeah, now I've got the time to be able to train a bit more. But yeah, that's kind of my training approach is always fluid. It's always right. What can I do right now? What's most optimal? If I've got something if I'm going into the gym, I don't want to be here, then I'm going to shorten the amount of training sessions I have because I'm not going to be in it. I'm not going to be in the mindset to do what I need to do in the gym. So again, it's completely fluid to what's happening at that current moment in time. But most of the time it will flip from either full body to push-pull legs. They're my kind of two main kind of training principles.
So before I tail off with the business side of things and the MCU side of things, as we've got that amazing collection we spoke about before coming on the air, I want to just touch on the cafeteria medication and just like,
yes.
I know you were unsure about it, you had your questions, there was a lot of potential side effects, and there's been a lot of rave reviews. And I just want to ask, like, give me a little bit of information about the drug, what impact it's had on you, and I have to ask, can you laugh properly again?
Yeah.
Oh, mate, that's the best news ever.
Mate, like, yeah. So Kaftrio is a drug that it's called Trikafta and Kaftrio. Kaftrio is the UK version, and then Trikafta is the American version. It's exactly the same drugs, just different companies, as far as I'm aware, anyway. But basically, it addresses the issue on a cellular level from the CF perspective. So to keep it very simple, you've got a cell, and you've got, imagine all these cells lined up. So imagine like a glass of water. Let's imagine, right, to kind of give people a visual of this. Now, again, CF, as I said, it's genetic. So it's this process is affected in a multitude of ways. So basically, this cell, a protein is created, and a protein travels through the cell, gets up to the top of the cell wall, and then tells the body what to signal. That's what happens in your body. Now, that system can be broken in so many ways with people with cystic fibrosis. Either, and this is a multitude of different things, that protein doesn't get made, or that protein gets made, it gets all the way up to the top and doesn't signal anything, or that protein gets made and gets stuck halfway. So that's the idea of the three potential issues really that are going to be caused. That's why it's called Trikafta and Kaftrio, because it affects those three processes. So essentially, my body is now, and this blows my mind, is now creating the protein. If it wasn't, it's now allowing safe passage through the cell if it wasn't already, and then it's telling it what to signal if it wasn't already. So now the mucus in my body is pretty much the way yours is.
Wow.
And I noticed the difference in 5 hours of taking it.
Hell.
Like, and I was healthy, relatively speaking, with some cystic fibrosis. I had a high lung function. I was good. Like, I was all right.
They weren't going to give you it, were they? Because they thought that the side effects weren't worth it because you were in the
Yeah, there was that conversation. Yeah, we had that conversation. And that was partly me as well. That was partly my ego, to be honest, of being like, well, I don't need a tablet. I'm good. Like, I don't want to, why would I risk? I'm very much in the camp of, if I don't need to take a medication, I'm not going to take it.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big part of why I never touch steroids, because like, I don't want them. I don't want to have to inject myself or take any. If I don't need to, I'm not gonna do it. But that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, this drug, like 5 hours. Again, my expectations were fairly tempered, like by myself and the team, because they're like, look, you're very healthy. You may not see a significant change. You may not see this and this and this. And 5 hours into it, I thought, right, a lot of people said like, oh, the first time you take it, like you'll feel like you haven't been breathing properly your entire life.
Wow.
And I was like, that's no way. There's no way there's no way I'm going to feel that. I remember standing at the sink. My wife was to my left, and I'll never forget this. I put both hands in the sink and went, I'm just going to try this. I'm just going to take a big deep breath. And that's usually what, if I took a deep breath, like normally without the medication, it would feel like it would cut short either at the bottom or at my throat. It just feels like I just couldn't fully expand my lungs. It always felt like someone like jammed them shut before I could get that full expansion, or I would cough. That'd be it. So I did that. I put both hands in the sink and just took a big deep breath in, and I felt my lungs expanding in my rib cage. I felt my lower lungs no joke, right down at the bottom of my lungs, like in my rib cage, I felt my lower lung expand. I've never felt that before. So like the equivalent I have of it is like, imagine like getting a crisp packet, right? Or chip packet if you're American, and not sealing it all the way around your mouth and blowing into it. Now you're going to inflate it a good bit, but there's going to be all those crinkles in it, and you're going to lose a lot of the air outside you that you haven't sealed around your mouth. Now that's what I was breathing like my entire life, and I didn't know because I knew nothing else. Now imagine sealing that all the way around your mouth and blowing into it and just went boom, like that. Like it, I genuinely felt my like lungs like expanding in a way that I've never felt before.
That's crazy.
And then, so another funny one, talking. Turns out I was putting a lot more effort into talking than I realized. So I got out of the car. This is the next day, and my neighbor was standing, and I was just waiting to say hello to her. She was talking to her friend, and I was kind of standing there waiting for the right time to say hello. I just went, hi, and I was like, whoa, like I yelled it at her because I was so used to putting a certain amount of energy into speech that now it was so much easier. So I yelled at her, and my wife was in the gym, like literally 5 foot away from me, like in the garage. I was like, did you just yell at our neighbor? I was like, I didn't mean to. Like, it was so easy. Like, I didn't realize speaking was this easy. I don't have to clear my throat before I speak now. I don't have to clear my throat at all. Actually, I used to always have to clear my throat before I started to speak because the mucus just would build up in my throat. I have to do that again. That's something I didn't even notice, but my doctor was like, "You do realize you're having to clear your throat every time you speak to me?" I was like, "Oh yeah." Laughing, much easier. Even like, this is even like the mucus in my mouth. It feels like water now. Like you know that watery mouth you get before you're going to be sick. Like
I'm starting to think you feel healthier than I do now. Like
it is, and I've been now on it for 3 months. Unfortunately, all those things that I was like, whoa, are now becoming normal to me, which is incredible. But at the same time, I always have that video of me reacting to it 5 hours in, and I'm so glad I'd filmed that. I was so hesitant to because I didn't want to feel like, because unfortunately there's loads of places in the world that don't have access to this drug. That's criminal, like, because it's genuinely life-changing for a lot of people. But I was hesitant because I was like, I don't want to rub this in people's face who haven't got the right genetics for it or don't have access to it. But I was like, you know what? No, that's not the way I should be living my life. I should be living my life for me. If people are upset and stuff like that, that's not my issue. This is an important moment for me. This is something I've been waiting for 31 years of my life for. When my heart goes out to the people who can't get it, and I cannot stress that enough, but I'm not going to allow that to take away from something that I have been waiting for my entire life. So I filmed it. And I think it's nearly like 100,000 people have watched it or something like that, which is madness.
I think as well as like yes, whilst people don't have access to that now, the more awareness is brought out on these drugs. You never know where it could go in future with potentially more funding, more research, more people doing it, more people sharing their experiences. It's only going to be a benefit, and a worst case scenario at least shares a story that could inspire people. That's like the worst case scenario of this.
Worst case, yeah. And again, hopefully people will see that who are in a position that do have control, and they see the difference it's made for someone like myself who is, air quotes, healthy with cystic fibrosis. So hopefully they can see, again, that's another aspect that I consider. I was like, well, hopefully it'll be shown to people who do have control over what gets funded and, all those things. So yeah, it's something I was.
So moving a little bit into the BMO University, and I want to go into the business thing a bit, because you mentioned about like not having an option with your cystic fibrosis. Like you didn't have a plan B, you burned those bridges and you had to act. Do you feel like that mindset has crossed over to other aspects of your life, like going into building a brand and a business side of things, where it's like a lot of people succeed when they go all in on something? Did you find that was an easier, less scary transition because you've been doing that all your life?
I mean, it was still scary. I still, I'm definitely not one without fear. Like there's still a lot of things that I would be fearful of doing, but it's almost, again, I thankfully I have the mindset, and I have had it for so long, that you only get one go, and you may as well, like the worst thing I can think of is wasting talent, wasting experience, not having experiences because you were so scared about what other people may think and all those things. And again, it's so much easier said than done, and I'm aware of this, but if you start making little small decisions that give you that confidence in yourself, like I love Warhammer. I've loved Warhammer since I was 11 years old and Lord of the Rings came out, and I still do. I still love it. It's such an enjoyable hobby for me. I'm so passionate about it. Like, it's one of those things that I was embarrassed to talk to people about because I was like, oh, they're going to judge me. And I was like, I don't care. Flipping Henry Cavill collects Warhammer. Superman collects Warhammer.
The next James Bond, in my opinion, collects Warhammer.
Should be. Again, that was one of those things that I was like, oh, I shouldn't do this. And now I'm considering even starting a YouTube channel for it because I was like, you know what? I freaking love this. Like,
you would get following.
I'll send you a video of the board that I made. Me and my dad built a board for it, and
that was awesome.
Pretty freaking happy with it, to be honest. But yeah, like, again, all these, all the business moves and all those things. Like, I got pushed into PTing. I was a fitness instructor at Fitness First back when they existed, and the manager who came in, who I didn't really like, was like, "Yeah, you're going to be a PT now," and I was like, "I'm not ready," and he's like, "No, you're ready. It doesn't really matter because we don't have enough to pay you to be a fitness staff anymore." So I was pushed into that again. Probably the best decision that someone else made for me. But yeah, with the BMU, again, it all comes down to the whole methodology. The whole thing about the BMU is it's allowing you to be more you. That's where the name came from. And then university just came naturally because I was like, I want people to learn why they're doing something. I want to teach them how to fish, not just give them the fish. They're going to get the fish with the training plans and the nutrition plans, but I'm going to give them the rod, the tackle, everything they need to then ensure that the progress they make is one that to them feels like something they can sustain forever. So that's the whole point behind it. And again, Josh Taylor coming on board as well. Fantastic guy. Like, just genuinely, we get along so well. We started our own podcast, Fit More, which again, the whole point of that. By the way, there was no crossover for that. We didn't ever. It's only in the last couple of weeks that we decided for him to jump on board the BMU. Fit More came from just the idea of, yeah, fitness should allow you to fit more into your life.
Good.
Which then tied perfectly into Be More, and we were like, we didn't even mean to do this, but even the colors and everything. So it was a match made in heaven. But yeah, again, that's the whole thing for me, is like, and it's an affordable thing for people. It's £40 a month, which is what a decent PT session a month. And again, like, there's so much scope for this, and I'm so excited about it. Like, it's already in a fantastic position, but I know it's going to be in greater position with Josh on board and all the people we have behind us, the amazing community we have. Like, yeah, I'm very, very excited about it. So yeah, there's a bit of fear, but then also I was like, well, I've got nothing to fear. I've lined myself up, so there's nothing to fear. If it doesn't, the only reason it's not going to work is if I don't work and Josh doesn't work and my wife doesn't work and the team behind us doesn't work, which isn't, I'm looking at my strengths, I'm looking at my weaknesses, and I'm trying to fill in someone who maybe has a weakness that is my strength. So, Josh is fantastically scientifically, minded, but then he admittedly, he struggles to then get out of that science way of thinking to break down the information so that the layman can understand it. And that's what I'm good. My brain works in analogies. He was laughing at that this weekend when he came over. He's like, you're just a walking analogy. And I was like, it's just how my brain works. He's also super well organized. He's got, structures. He loves his Excel sheets. I don't. I'm very technophobic, like, again, but having him, again, I know my weaknesses, I know his strengths, and we complement each other perfectly. We get along really well. So yeah, it's about making, risky but informed decisions, and that's really helped me. But again, look, there's so many projects I've failed, air quotes, failed.
Yes.
But I tried them. The amount of failed projects I have massively outweigh the successful ones. But I tried them, and that's ultimately how you learn. Like, you can't be afraid of failure.
I think
failures teach you something.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I'd love to go. Well, I'm not ever going to do this because because it would take far too long, and having ADHD, I would get distracted far too often. But the amount of half-finished notes, half-finished business ideas, things that have gone and got nowhere, that started coming through. And I think you having something like the university there's a real scope of it, especially in today's world where the world's becoming more isolated than ever. People are more polarizing. There is more arguments. There's less community. There's less social interaction face to face. People are more fearful of that. That creating an online community sometimes nothing will ever replace the one-to-one coaching, but
no.
but that person teach where if one of your clients or one of my clients was like, I've gone off plan this week, they might be a bit embarrassed or intimidated to tell you. But having a community could create for some a better environment, and having that option out there is so valuable, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Like again, it's harder to fall when there's people by your side.
Yeah,
it's just literally it.
So like before we like close this off, so I know you only had just over an hour. I don't want to take up all of your day. So I have just recently, long overdue, got into the MCU. My other half has finally persuaded me to watch them because I think I needed another 30 years of life to catch up. But we're finally getting through it quick. And I've actually quickly become one of my favorite characters. I was into a lot of the Marvel comic books, but I didn't know much about Thor. And I realized he is a total badass. And you mentioned at the start with the surprising Ja Rule body composition goal, where mine was very much Triple H. And you mentioned being compared to Iron Man. Thor didn't come up in this. So where did the Thor comparison come from? Was it just a visual likeness? I know you've called people your little Thors when you've helped people with cystic fibrosis as kids. What's the origin of the Thor comparison?
So there's a couple of reasons why. So the visual, apparently I look like Chris Hemsworth, which I'm not going to complain about because that guy is a good looking dude. Objectively, he is a very handsome man. So I'm not going to complain about that. But I have long hair. I did have long hair for a long time, then I cut it, and now I've grown it back again because I got bored of having short hair.
I'm jealous, man. My hair goes up. Very jealous.
Mine goes into flipping ringlets and everything. Like this is controlled, actually. Yeah, it was. Well, first of all, I've loved superheroes growing up. Again, it was that idea of they've got something that makes them different to everyone but special, which was my cystic fibrosis. Obviously, I didn't know it then. That's just why I had such an affinity with him. So Spider-Man was my boy. Like he was just a normal kid. Again, I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel like that as well. But yeah, Spider-Man was my favorite growing up. Then yeah, like people when the first Thor film came out, people were like, "Oh, you look like the guy Thor." Like this before I had long hair and everything. Then I decided to grow my hair out because I was bored. I just wanted to try something different. And it was whenever I was in England with my wife's parents. My parents, her parents were living over there. We went into this shop. It was like a medieval shop, and I found Mjolnir, like the hammer here. It was like a foam one. I was like, I need to get that. That's so cool. Brought it back, and I think I took a photo with it, and it was in the background or something. So I was like, oh, that's so cool. He's got the Thor hammer. Long story short, I was looking at why we call the words of the week what we do. I'm just weird. So I was like, where's the etymology? Like, why do we call Monday, Monday, Tuesday, Tuesday, blah, blah, blah. Thursday literally is what we get the word Thursday from. So Norse gods directly impact. So today being Tuesday is actually Tearsday or Tearstag, which is like the god of virtue and single arm combat. So all the language we use, Wednesday is Woden's Day. It's derived from Woden's Day, which is Odin. So yeah, I just found that fact out and I was like, that's pretty cool. I've got the hammer. I'm just going to take a photo and say Happy Thursday and explain a little bit about why it's called Thursday.
Thursday.
And then it exploded. Like people were like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. And then obviously I was like, oh, wait a minute. There's a kind of cool crossover between the idea of being this Thor character. I can use this to help kids with CF take their medications, because if they see Thor doing it,
that's brilliant.
Level. Yeah, so I started doing that, and man, it was insane. Like the messages I've gotten from parents and family and everybody, like, I have kids dressing up as Thor because I dressed up as Thor, taking their nebulizers, people wanting their kids to get hammers. Like, Marvel owes me some money. That's really what it comes down to.
Royalty fees.
Yeah, damn right. But yeah, I started doing that, and all comes from just me being a nerd about the words of the week, and I've just always been inquisitive about the amount of random things that my brain has held on to throughout the years is insane. Trivia is like, I'm pretty sure if I did pub quizzes, I'd do all right. But yeah, it comes from that, and then I obviously just pursued that, and I've got the costumes and everything, which are wildly uncomfortable, but they they serve their purpose, and that's to help kids and people everywhere. deal with what they need to deal with, because it's more than me. Like it's a character. And I stepped away from it for a while because I felt like someone had came up to me in the gym and were like, "Oh, you're that Thor guy," and I was like, "You don't know my name. Like, you don't know my name's Ben." No, again, they have, but that's how they knew me. And I was like, part of me is like, that's so cool. But also I was like, maybe that's too much. And so, I stepped back from it for a while, but as I said, I realized recently that was stupid of me. Like I should have kept going with that, because that was my ego being like, oh, I want to be known as Ben. Like I don't want to be known as someone else. But again, I can understand why I thought that, but now I'm realizing like, nah, this helps so many people. And now I'm getting messages from kids. Like as soon as I posted it last Thursday, actually. Sorry, last Thursday. And the amount of messages I've got from like parents of kids who are like, "Oh my goodness, my kid is so happy that Thor's back." And I got a video of this kid in Australia. Literally, he was like, couldn't sit still. He has cystic fibrosis. He couldn't sit still because it was a scene in Ragnarok. Have you seen it yet?
No. That's I've just watched the first Avengers movie. So yeah, it's soon.
Ragnarok. Chef's kiss.
Okay, cool.
But there's a scene in that is very good. That's all I'll say. And she panned around from the TV from that scene to this kid, and he was literally shaking, like watching Thor. And she's like, "He's so happy Thor's back." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that was the right decision." So,
yeah, it's amazing. Literally, I'm well over 50 episodes into this podcast now, and it's amazing how every show I've done, maybe it's because I'm always looking into it now, comes full circle. And we spoke about the start about hard work meeting opportunity. And like, you didn't work hard to be Thor. You heard a comparison. You went, "I'm going to lean into this." Yeah. And, it just so happened that you found the link and there was an opportunity there and it catapulted. And I think that's a really incredible power that many other people probably wouldn't have. One, looking a little bit like Chris Hemsworth and having that ability to have that audience is just, it's incredible.
Yeah. Again, there's no plans behind that. It just happened to be. And I was like, "Oh, well, this is cool. I get to dress up as a superhero," which is what I want to always do as a kid. The fact that I even look even similar to a superhero to me as the child version, because the child version of you is always there. I think you never, hopefully, a lot of people get theirs, but I never did.
No, yeah.
Child part of me is just like, this is so cool. Like, this is awesome. Like, I get to dress up, and not only is it fun for me and kind of cool, like, you stick on a cape, you immediately feel 10% cooler. I'd say pushing that 25% actually. Now then thinking, okay, this is not only fun for me, but it's amazing for other people. Why wouldn't I do it? Like it's nonsensical to not do it. So you're probably going to see a little bit more.
You've almost like one of my biggest things during the first lockdown. I've always nearly my whole life wanted a beard. Right? I can never grow one like you. I had the best attempt. That was a slightly curly bit of fluff, and I've kept this ever since, and I love it. But for a while, I had a very similar thing that when I first was given my glasses, I was clean shaven, had my hair combed off to the side, and I kept getting comparisons. And I leaned into it. I had all my laptops, my iPad screens were it. I did all my photo shoot pictures with my glasses on, like didn't take them off. And it almost inspired me now. I was like, right, there's going to be a link if I just shave this off again and get the hair combed across again. So like, if I get rid of the beard and I hate it, I'm going to come back and blame you, but we'll see.
It could just be Dark Superman, the one in the terrible.
Oh yeah, okay.
Where he had like stubble.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Or just do the Henry Cavill mustache. That's what I did over November. That's
just not fair. Henry Cavill can pull off he looks great with a mustache. Like, no joke, I was lying in bed the other day and my wife was sitting beside me. She said, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm just pissed off." And she's like, "Why?" She's like, "Henry Cavill, he has no right being able to pull off that, but he does."
Oh, he pulls off everything, and this is why. Like when you talked about Sean Bean at the start of this episode, and you see him as Boromir, I see him as Alex Trevelyan, because I'm the huge James Bond nerd. Like, I've got an episode of this show called The Bond Debate, and explaining why I hated the ending of No Time to Die. But no spoilers in this episode. But I was talking. No, the worst creative decision in the world. That's 60 years of history just gone. But anyway,
I mean, from an emotional side, amazing. But from a perspective side, yeah,
I was too clouded over with rage. I was just like, like the worst creative decision in cinema. I was like, I left just like Ellie was just like grabbing my hand and was like, not yet, I'm not ready for this. Give me a minute. It took me about a week, and I saw it again. I got even more angry. But yeah, like I can't remember where I was going with this. I just launched the rage again of like the No Time to Die movie. All gone. But yeah, Henry Cavill. And I thought if they don't cast him, it's a crying shame, because it's like it's someone that's so genetically built to be Bond. Like, if you watch The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and you don't think that man has to play the part. Like, I know Richard Madden would be good, Tom Hardy could be good. Now you've done what you did at the end of this last movie, and it's maybe not be the same man anymore. Well, maybe Idris is an option, maybe a bit too old. But like, it's too perfect. It's like having David Beckham in his prime or Richie McCaw in his prime and not putting him on the team sheet. Like, you just wouldn't do it. Exactly. So just to close off, quick question before we go into where to find you. But I've always asked this since I got on Chris Van Vliet. If you've not heard of Chris, he's a guy who interviews film stars, including Henry Cavill, and a lot of pro wrestlers. And he always asks his guests at the end of the show, and I thought this is brilliant, of what are they most grateful for? And I thought, with everything that you've been through, at this moment, what are you most grateful for at the moment?
It's going to sound so cheesy, but genuinely, life. Like, that sounds so cheesy, but like, it is. Like, life gives you so many opportunities. Like, there's being alive and there's having life, and there's a very distinct difference between them both. But I'm very grateful for life, because that allows me to pursue things that excite me, that cause me happiness, that cause other people happiness. And yeah, I mean, second to that would be breathing. Yeah. Like, I'm never going to not appreciate, like, even whenever I just took that breath when I was going through, what I was talking about earlier, like, that is just so simple. So simple. But people just, again, it's so easy to get caught up in what people don't have and what you want and all those things. But sometimes you need to just take a step back and be like, what is my body doing for me right now that I simply wouldn't exist without? And that's breathing. Breathing is such a fundamentally important factor in our lives. You take it away, done. You're done.
Yeah.
Like, and something, and I feel like I've been given mine back 10 times. So yeah. So
I was going to ask you to finish off with what was your favorite superhero movie, but I think Thor Ragnarok may have got that chef's kiss approval. But
that or the new Spider-Man.
It's really good, isn't it? It is really good.
I literally teared up in that. I was sitting watching it, and I was so in awe of what was going on that just tears just started forcing themselves out of my eyes, and I was like, I don't care. This is a dark room. I don't care. This is amazing. Like, this is one of those things that, as I said, growing up, Spider-Man was my hero. Like, I even still in pools, I still like pretend I'm Spider-Man, like hanging onto the edge of the corners of the pool. I'm just like, I'm Spider-Man. The other day, I was showering, and I knocked the razor off the edge of the little platform in my shower, and I caught it behind my back in between my pinky finger and my ring finger, and I was like, and I was like, damn it. It's like, have I developed superpowers? And I was like, nah. Well.
Yeah, I love that movie. I love the fact that he managed to have so many surprises spoiled, but have so many still there. That, like, when that little cameo of Daredevil appeared, the cinema just jumped, and I was just like, that's fantastic. So going to the question I was going to ask is, if you could have a superpower yourself, that's not one you potentially say that you already own. Like, actually, if you can get something creative about breathing, that'd be awesome. But what would it be?
Okay, so there's two.
Okay.
One would be the ability to learn something, like anything that I want in 24 hours. So it's not like an instantaneous, but I literally, whatever it is, whatever subject it is, I have the ability that my brain can absorb every piece of information about it in 24 hours.
Oh, I'd love that.
I feel like I've thought about this quite a bit, as you can tell. And the other one would be, this is the kind of more like, nice one. The ability to heal people just by speaking to them.
You can see where you go into this profession, right? This is it might take 20 weeks, but this is essentially what we do.
Yeah, that is like, I would love to be able to heal people, like both mentally and physically. Yeah, those would be my two that I'd pick.
That's awesome. I think if we're gonna end somewhere, that paints you in the best light that we can do. So for people that want to find out more about you, and you know how obviously generously helpful you clearly are by wanting to heal people, where is the best places to find Ben Mudge?
Instagram at Ben Mudge _. I still can't get Ben Mudge. Some guy's been using it. Well, hasn't been using it for years.
Oh.
I know. I might have to message Instagram again, see if they can give me that account. But anyway, Ben Mudge _. Then Be More University is Be More Uni. If you want to check out kind of what's going on behind there. We've got the Fit More podcast as well, so you can search that in Spotify, iTunes, wherever. And then YouTube as well. I'm starting to do a little bit more YouTube stuff because I've got a very talented videographer who shoots and edits and makes me look way cooler than I actually am. So, yeah, they're the 4 places.
Awesome. Yeah, and I definitely vouch for the podcast. It's on my listen list because I get through about 12 podcasts a day. I'm a true addict. This is why this was the best thing I did in 2021. Yeah. But thank you so much. That was really, really good fun. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much, Simon.